Hey, I'm Allison. Welcome to Math Bytes. So what is the deal with denominators? Why do they have to be the same when we add or subtract fractions? Let's look at denominators in a little more detail. Fractions represent parts of a whole, and the denominator, the number on the bottom, indicates how many parts make up that whole. So let's look at an example. Suppose I have $1 in quarters. I have 4 quarters that make up my dollar. So let's write that as a fraction. My fraction would be that my $1 is equal to 4 over 4. Now, the number on the bottom, the denominator, indicates how many quarters I need to make up my dollar, 4. And the number on the top, the numerator, indicates how many quarters I currently have, which in this case is also 4. All right, following that logic, suppose I spend one of my quarters and now I have 3 left. So my fraction then becomes 3 over 4. The denominator still indicates that I need 4 quarters to make up my dollar, but now I only have 3 quarters left. So my fraction is 3 over 4. Okay, let's go back to having 4 quarters again. Now I also have another dollar, but I have it in dimes. So in one case, I'm looking at my dollar as 4 out of 4 quarters. And in the other case, I'm looking at my dollar as 10 out of 10 dimes. So I have 2 fractions here. The first one is 1 equals 4 over 4, 4 out of 4 quarters. And my second fraction is 1 equals 10 over 10, 10 dimes out of 10 dimes. The fraction that represents one of my quarters is 1 over 4. And the fraction that represents one of my dimes is 1 over 10. What if I add them? Now, if I add 25 cents and 10 cents, I get 35 cents, but that's not actually what we're doing here. What we're doing here is adding fractions of a dollar. 1/4 of a dollar plus 1/10 of a dollar. Now, 1/4 represents a bigger piece of a dollar than 1/10 does, because a quarter is worth more money than a dime. So I have to account for the fact that 1 over 4 is a bigger piece of my dollar. And I do that by finding a common denominator. Let's find a common denominator and add these fractions. I'm going to use for my common denominator the product of the 2 denominators I currently have. This won't necessarily give me the least common denominator. In fact, in this case, it will not. But that's the denominator I'm going to use, and then I'm going to reduce at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply my first fraction by 10 over 10, and I'm going to multiply my second fraction by 4 over 4. So what I get is 1 times 10 over 4 times 10 plus 1 times 4 over 10 times 4. All right, let's simplify that a little bit. That gives me 1 times 10 is 10, 4 times 10 is 40, plus 1 times 4 is 4, and 10 times 4 is 40. Now I have the same denominator for both of my fractions. With the denominators the same, we can now compare the size of these fractions simply by looking at the numerators. And you'll notice the fraction that represents 1 over 4, which is now 10 over 40, is greater than the fraction that represents 1 over 10, which is now 4 over 40. With the denominators the same, all I have to do is look at the numerators to see which fraction is greater. Okay, let's continue. We're going to now add these, so we get 10 plus 4 over 40, which is equal to 14 over 40. Now, I have to reduce this. It is not in lowest terms. So I'm going to factor a 2 out of the top and the bottom here, and I get 2 times 7 over 2 times 20. Those 2's will cancel out. 2 divided by 2 is just 1. So that leaves me with 7 over 20. So adding 1/4 of a dollar and 1/10 of a dollar actually gives you 7/20ths of a dollar. Now, in case you're not convinced that we should get 7 over 20 when we add 1 over 4 and 1 over 10, let's take a little look here. If I write 7 over 20 as a decimal, I get 0.35 or 35 cents, which is exactly what we knew we should get when we added a quarter and a dime. So you can see that this clearly is the right answer. When you have different denominators and you want to add or subtract fractions, you must turn them into the same denominator so that you account for which fraction is looking at a bigger piece of your whole, whether that's a dollar or something else. That's it for this episode of Math Bytes. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel. And if you have a question, why don't you email us? We're at contactmathbytes@gmail.com, and I'll see you next time.